Please welcome Reverend Andy Corbin.
Yay!
Oh, hi everybody. Wow. So, it's hard to figure out how to start because, Mother's Day and Father's Day brings up a lot of different emotions for people. And in some cases, they're positive emotions, positive energies, positive love, positive memories. And in other cases, they're a little bit painful. Maybe you had some painful situations as you were growing up with a father. And, the important thing to remember is that, if your father was not a good dad or a daddy, he was just a vehicle to get you here. Because there were many beautiful, I'm sure, I hope, wonderful, father figures in your life. And, I was one of those people that was actually blessed. I have had 3 fathers. My biological father, Alan Grotsky, passed away when I was 5 years old. And when I was 6, my mother remarried Harold Maxwell. Sorry. Who told me that he married my mom because he wanted to be my father. And we lost him last September. When I was in Oregon, I was helping my sister through a surgery. And he passed away. I think he waited till I was there because I'm the one that lives in California and everybody else is in Oregon. So thank you, Dad, for everything that you did. And we were talking about this earlier. I used to kind of dread calling my dad because most of the things that he would talk about were politics and religion because he really didn't know how to talk about anything else. But as time went along and he got older, I would tell him, Dad, I lived my life wearing rose-colored glasses. So could we please have some rose-colored glasses? And in some of your conversations, the negativity really kind of hurts me. And so he started finally telling me more stories about his life and about when he grew up. And so whenever he would start bringing up politics and things, I would go, rose-colored glasses. And believe it or not, he really did change the subject. He really tried hard, so God love him. I loved him and dearly. And, he did not consider me his stepchild. I was his child. And he's always told everybody, I have 4 children. I don't have 2 stepchildren and 2 natural children. I have 4 children. So I was blessed. And when I was 13, they divorced. My mom and he divorced. And my mother married a man named Larry. And Larry has been in our lives since I was 13 years old. He's still with us. Unfortunately, he's dealing with a lot of health issues right now. And so even if I called him and said, hi, Papa, happy Father's Day, I'm not sure that he would remember. But we love him, and we love everything that he's brought, to our lives. So, we want to look at dads and fathers in a whole different way. So I started thinking to myself, how do I bring Father's Day to people and not bring up a lot of, tears if we need to, or if you need to cry, that's okay. If you need to be welled up, that's all right. But I discovered some really interesting things when I started searching. I thought, I'm going to look for the history of Father's Day. And boy, did I found some really interesting stuff. So did you know that Father's Day is actually a religious holiday? In Catholic Europe is what Wikipedia says. That in Catholic Europe, it's known to date back to the Middle Ages. And it was observed and still is observed to this day on March 19th. Because that is the feast day of St. Joseph, who is referred to as the nourisher of the Lord. And in Catholicism, he's also the putative father of Jesus the Christ in the Southern European tradition. So the celebration was brought to the Americas by the Spanish and the Portuguese. And in Latin America, Father's Day is still celebrated on March 19th. But it's celebrated in a whole different way because it's St. Joseph's Day. And so as we're looking at fathers today, let's think about our Father who art in heaven, as they say. In the Coptic Church, though, their celebration of fatherhood was also observed on St. Joseph's Day, but for the Coptic observation, it's actually July 20th. So, I have some tissue here. Thank you. Excuse me. So, interestingly enough, that celebration goes back to the 5th century. So, I mean, I was fascinated by this stuff. It's
I thought
really
it was
amazing.
a Hallmark day.
Yeah, I mean, huh?
I thought it was a Hallmark day.
It became one, but but in the United States, it had many different beginnings. And it is a 20th century holiday, but Father's Day was not celebrated in the USA outside of the Catholic religion until the 20th century.
Wow.
So, wow. I mean, wow is right. I mean, as I read this stuff, I'm like, God, this is amazing, you know? So, as a civic celebration in the US, it was inaugurated in the early 20th century as a complementary holiday to Mother's Day. But there were many different beginnings, and you're going to be really fascinated when you hear some of this stuff because it's really interesting. So, as we know, or maybe you don't know, Anna Jarvis successfully promoted Mother's Day and in Grafton, West Virginia, and that's where Mother's Day began. And the first observance of Father's Day was actually held on January 5th in 1908 in Fairmont, West Virginia. Did you know this, Donnie? In the Williams Memorial Methodist Episcopal Church South, which is now known as the Central United Methodist Church. And a woman named Grace Golden Clayton, who was mourning the loss of her father, was also honoring and thought of the honoring in December 1907. There was, if I could say, Monongah mining disaster. So in Monongah, Virginia, there was a mining disaster and it killed 361 men.
Jesus.
250 of them were fathers and that left over 1,000 children fatherless. So Clayton suggested to her pastor that they honor all of these fathers. And so she did not create any repercussions outside of her area. And there were several reasons for this, but one of the main was that they didn't advertise it too well because they were celebrating it on July 4th, 1908. And there were 12,000 attendants that were at other events.
Yeah.
And there was like a hot air balloon show, there were fireworks, there were a lot of other different things that were occurring. And so it took over the headlines of those following days, and especially because there was a 16-year-old girl on July 4th that had passed, and in an accident as well. So the local church and council were kind of overwhelmed. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what they should do. And so the original sermon that was never reproduced by the press, it was lost completely. So it was actually originally a sermon. And I was amazed actually when I was looking in also online that how many sermons there are for Father's Day, because it really is going back to Father God. And as they put it, Father Joseph, because Joseph was the father of Jesus. So here's some failed attempts to start Father's Day in the USA. In 1911, Jane Addams proposed a citywide Father's Day to be held in Chicago, but she was turned down.
What?
Who wants to do that? In 1912, a Father's Day celebration was held in Vancouver, Washington, and it was suggested by a Methodist pastor, J.J. Beringer of the Irvington Methodist Church. And they mistakenly believed that they had been the first to celebrate such a day. So all they were doing was actually following a suggestion in the Portland Oregonian newspaper that was printed in 1911. And they suggested it, and they went, oh, we're going to follow that. We're the first. Never happened. There's a gentleman by the name of Harry C. Meek, who was part of Lions Club International, and he claimed that he was the first one to come up with the idea of Father's Day in 1915. So Meek said that the third Sunday was chosen because that was his birthday.
Well, when you're the first, you get to do that.
And the Lions Club has actually named him the originator of Father's Day.
Yeah. All right.
So, the actual establishment of the holiday was on June 19th, 1910. There was a Father's Day celebration that was held at the YMCA in Spokane, Washington, And a lady named Sonora Smart Dodd, her father was a Civil War veteran, and he was a single parent who raised 6 children completely on his own. So she was also a member of the an old Presbyterian church, now known as Knox Presbyterian Church, and when she first proposed the idea. So after hearing a sermon about Jarvis's Mother's Day, she decided that things were a little bit out of balance, and that clergymen needed to pay more attention to fathers as well. And so on June 19th, 1910 was the first Father's Day, and sermons honoring fathers were held throughout the city of Spokane, Washington. So, isn't that interesting, in Vancouver. So, however, in the 1920s, Dodd stopped promoting Father's Day because she was too busy studying at an art institute in Chicago. So it faded into obscurity. So there's a lot of different things. So now we're looking at going prior to the 1920s. In 1913, there was an idea for a holiday that was introduced into Congress, and President Wilson spoke in Spokane. He spoke in Spokane at a Father's Day celebration, and he wanted to make it an officially recognized federal holiday, but the Congress resisted. Can't imagine. Fearing that it would become too commercialized.
Well, oops.
So, Calvin Coolidge recommended in 1924 that the day be observed throughout the nation, but that too was defeated by the Congress.
Holy smokes.
And Maine Senator Margaret Chase Smith wrote a Father's Day proposal accusing Congress of ignoring fathers for 40 years, and thus singling out only one of our 2 parents. So, in 1966, okay, you ready for that? 1966, Lyndon B. Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation of honoring fathers,
wow,
designating the 3rd Sunday of June as the official day. 6 years later, it was made a permanent holiday when Richard Nixon signed the papers into law in 1972. So can you imagine that? I mean, I remember as a kid we always had Father's Day. Yeah. So I guess that different traditions still brought the holiday in, but it wasn't really the big hallmark holiday that it is and everything else. It wasn't considered nationally, and it was not considered something, to that. Now, here's an interesting, in addition to Father's Day, there's an International Men's Day that's celebrated in many countries on November 19th to honor the men and boys who are not fathers. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. So let's have so I thought let's dig even deeper. Let's check into some more kind of interesting things and more interesting facts. Because I was fascinated by all of this stuff. I mean, this was amazing. So, in the Roman Catholic tradition, as we said, it's held on St. Joseph's Day, commonly known as the Feast of St. Joseph, still held on March 19th. So certain countries do not have secular celebrations, but it's common for the Catholics to honor their spiritual father. So I think that's a great way to honor fathers. And I mean, in addition to the fact that we have many amazing fathers, and in today's world and today's society, I'm so thrilled of how many men truly do want to be part of the fathering. They want to be part of the parenting. And I know that my company was one of the first companies to not only have a maternity leave, but we also have paternity leave. And I'm so thrilled for that. And they get just as much time off as the mother. So a lot of times the mother will go on the maternity leave, and after she heals and she's been for a few months and she's done the bonding with the child, then the father will take a paternity leave. And he'll do the bonding with the child. I think that's so cool. And I spoke to you, I think, on Mother's Day about my friends who adopted, my 2 gay friends that adopted 2 children. And they're amazing fathers and mothers, they're both. So I think it's wonderful. And my friend he works at Adobe as well, and he's been on paternity leave and taking care of getting his kids to and from daycare, taking care of all of the needs and all of the stuff that a parent does. So, blessings, I'm so thrilled that we have that today. So happy about that. Let's go back to some other fun traditions here. So Father's Day is observed by 111 countries worldwide. Many countries use the third Sunday in June because they're following along the example of the USA. But in many countries, it's not a public holiday, not recognized, not something that anybody deals with.
Well,
So
gotta do something about
in South Sudan, take note of this, South Sudan, Father's Day is celebrated on the last Monday of August. Their president, or the president at the time, President Meyer Diet, proclaimed it to be for August 27th, 2012. First celebrated on that day, Father's Day was not celebrated in South Sudan in 2011 due to the country's independence or non-independence, I don't know. In Sudan, it is celebrated the 21st of June. In the People's Republic of China, there is no official Father's Day, but many people celebrate it on the third Sunday in June, following along with the USA. Prior to the People's Republic, the Republic of China, governed by Nanjing, Father's Day was celebrated on August 8th. It was determined that the fact that the 8th day of the 8th month, 2 8s, ba, which sounds similar to their colloquial word for daddy, is still celebrated on this date in areas still under the control of the Republic of China, including Taiwan. Father's Day is also celebrated in the special administrative regions in Hong Kong. It's celebrated on the third Sunday in June, but it's not a public holiday. Let's see. In India, Father's Day is not celebrated in all areas. There's only certain areas within India where they celebrate it, but it is observed on the third Sunday in June. One of my coworkers had his photo in Facebook this morning, and he's in India with his daughter, and so I wished him a happy Father's Day, which is awesome. So they started following after 1908 when the USA started looking at having a Father's Day. In Indonesia, Father's Day is celebrated on November 12th. And it's not a public holiday, but it was first declared in 2006 in Solo City, attended by hundreds of people from various groups, including people from communities of inter-religion communication. Wow, that's so cool. That's really cool. I love that stuff. Because of its recent declaration, there is not very much hype about the celebration compared to the celebration of Mother's Day, that they celebrate actually on December 22nd. So right around the winter solstice. In Israel, Father's Day is usually celebrated on May 1st, together with the Workers' Day or their Labor Day.
Labor Day for mothers sounds appropriate.
Yeah, doesn't it though? That does sound appropriate, huh? So let's see. The Newar populations in Kathmandu Valley in Nepal honors fathers on the day of Kusa Unsi, which occurs in late August or early September, depending on the year, and it depends on their lunar calendar. This Western-inspired celebration was imported to the country and always celebrated on the same day as Gorkana Aunsi. And I don't know what that holiday is, we'll have to look that up. The rest of the population began to celebrate on that day. So let's see, traditionally in Kathmandu Valley, the southwestern corner, for women and women-related rituals, and northeastern is for men and men-related rituals. The worship place is, in English, Mother Pilgrimage New Moon, that is for men, is located in Mata Tirtha, and is the southwestern half of the valley, and they worship Gorkana Aunsa, is located in the northeastern half.
How big a valley is this?
It's a pretty big valley, I guess. I don't know. You ever been to Kathmandu? I've never been to Kathmandu. Anybody ever been to Kathmandu? We'll have to find out about that.
I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the Philippines, their president proclaimed that they will celebrate Father's Day on the third Sunday in June,
Yes, they will.
and it was proclaimed in 1988.
Wow.
So recent, isn't it? So in Taiwan, it's not an official holiday, but it's widely observed on August 8th, again, the same day as that I discussed before. And there were two that I thought were kind of fun, all right? So in France, there's a lighter manufacturer, lighters, called Flamannière. And they introduced the idea of Father's Day in 1949 for commercial reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, so they wanted to sell their lighters in France. In 1950, they introduced, let's see if I can say it, La Fête des Pères, which would take place the third Sunday of June, following the American example. And their slogan, I'll just read it in English. Our fathers told us for Father's Day they all want a Flamannière. That's the company that made the lighters. Yeah, that was the lighters company. So, in 1952, the holiday was officially decreed in France. A National Father's Day Committee was actually set up to give a prize for the fathers that deserved it the most. Smoke the most cigars? I don't know. It's like what they figured, I think they said that the candidates were nominated by the social services at the mayor's office. And so I thought that was very interesting. Now, Germany's a fun one, okay? So for all you people who enjoy drinking, doesn't fit me, but fits, could fit other people. In Germany, Father's Day, Vatertag, is celebrated differently than all the other parts of the world.
Of course.
It's always celebrated on Ascension Day. Now, isn't this interesting? Celebrated on Ascension's Day, which is the Thursday that's 40 days after Easter. And it's a federal holiday. And regionally, it's also called Men's Day. Men's Day. Männertag, or Gentleman's Day. Herrentag. It is traditional for groups of males, young and old, except for preteens, to do a hike, pulling a wagon, or bigger wagons or smaller wagons, using only manpower to pull the wagons.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
The wagons are filled with wine and beer.
Oh, no, that sounds like fun. There we go.
And according to whichever region you live in, whether you're a wine region or you're a beer region, and also traditional regional food.
Now they get the beer before they decide to pull it up the hill?
No, they have to pull it up the hill to get the beer. They can't. They have to do the hike and then they get to drink.
Okay,
So many men use this holiday as an opportunity to get drunk
either way.
because their wives won't let them otherwise.
Just leave the wagon.
Yeah. But according to the federal statistics of the Office of Germany, alcohol-related traffic accidents multiply by 3 on this day.
Yeah.
The tradition of Father's Day is especially prevalent in Eastern Germany.
Yay.
So it says
Mazel
these
tov. No.
and so again, it goes back to Christianity though, because it says these traditions were probably rooted in the Christian Ascension's Day, the processions to the farmlands, which was celebrated since the 18th century. So men would be seated in a wooden cart and carried to the village plaza, and the mayor would award a prize to the father who had the most children. Usually a big piece of ham. Okay.
All
So in
right.
the late 19th century, the religious component was progressively lost. That's too bad. Especially in urban areas such as Berlin, where groups of men organized walking excursions with beer and ham. Woohoo! I was thinking more like, maybe a Wiener Schnitzel or something, but I guess, but a ham. By the 20th century, alcohol consumption had become the major part of the tradition. Many people will take the following Friday off work, and some schools are closed that Friday. Many people then use the resulting 4-day weekend for a short vacation and probably recovering from their hangovers.
Good use of their time.
Interesting. In Italy, according to the Roman Catholic tradition, Father's Day is celebrated St. Joseph's Day, as we said. It didn't become a public holiday until 1977. I'm really fascinated by all this stuff. It's so amazing. In Latvia, Father's Day is celebrated the second Sunday of September. And it's not a public holiday, but the people did not always celebrate this day because of the USSR's influence on their own holidays. So this day in Latvia was officially born, they even put it officially born in quotes, in September of 2008. So, and it says, the idea is the man and the father must be proud and satisfied of his family and his children. Because the day is new to the country, it does not have an established unique tradition, but people borrow ideas from other countries and traditions. As long as they don't borrow the beer, right? In Malta, the Father's Day is celebrated on the third Sunday in June, as in the case of Mother's Day. The introduction of Father's Day celebrations in Malta were encouraged by Franz H. Said, Uncle Franz of the children's radio program. Oh, here is Uncle Al, the kitty's pal. Oh, sorry. The first mention of Father's Day was in June of 1977. So you can see, I mean, it's really it's so weird because it was such a medieval, honoring, but it was very religious back then. And as time went along, it didn't start catching up until the 20th century. And some of them in the 21st century, right? So in Netherlands, it's celebrated third Sunday of June, not a public holiday. Traditionally, as on Mother's Day, fathers get breakfast in bed made by their children. And the families gather together and have dinner, usually at the grandparents' house. So in recent years, families have started to have dinner out. That is if you can make a reservation, because that's always, that's always the hard part. The law instituting the Father's Day celebration in Romania was passed September 29th, 2009. So 10 years ago? Only 10 years ago. And stated Father's Day will be celebrated annually on the second Sunday of May. Just like Mother's Day, I don't know, isn't that Mother's Day? First time it was celebrated May 9th, 2010. And so it was celebrated the 12th of May in 2019. Pretty interesting. In the United Kingdom, Father's Day is celebrated the third Sunday in June. The day does not have a long tradition. The English year 2006 states that it entered British popular culture sometime after the Second World War, and not without opposition.
Huh. So some people didn't want it, eh?
Yeah. In Canada, they have small family gatherings and giving away of gifts. So let's see. So we could go through, there's a lot of other countries, but you get the gist of what's happening here is that really something that was an old religious tradition slowly but surely went worldwide and became less and less religious and more in honoring of a father, of a human father. And I really believe that our fathers can be heroes, but they also can be human. And we have to remember that because we all make mistakes, right? So I really thought that it was interesting that today I would honor my Heavenly Father. And not only that, but honor the physical fathers that I have had, two of whom are already in heaven. So, let's see, how about a couple of quotes, Father Day's quotes? I really loved the one that said, when he didn't have my hand, he always had my back.
Nice.
Another one that I saw that I did not see, that Jan printed these up for me, I didn't see it printed, but it said, a father is a son's first hero and a daughter's first love. Getting chills when I'm thinking about these things. So someone wrote, anyone can be a father, Wade Boggs, but it takes someone special to be a dad, and that's why I call you Dad, because you are so special to me. You taught me the game, you taught me how to play, and how to play it right. And then Euripides said, to a father growing old nothing is dearer than a daughter. Because I think a father looks at their daughters and the women they've become with a lot of pride and a lot of beautiful energy. And sometimes, as we all know, in humans, people are not always that way. But we know that, for the most part, when a child is created, they're normally created in love. And like I said, I'm very thrilled that in today's culture, our men are recognized as fathers. It's easier for a father to have children than for children to have a real father. So that's one of the quotes that goes along with that lines. And I think it was that's interesting. It says Pope John the 23rd said that. Abraham Lincoln says, "No man stands taller than when he stoops to help a child." And William Shakespeare said, "When a father gives his son, both laugh. When a father gives to his son, both laugh. When a son gives to his father, both cry." And there was another one that I saw that I wanted to share, the last one I wanted to share with you. And I'm looking for it, I'm not finding it. Hold on, I will find it. And if I don't, we'll come up with something else. Steve Martin said a father carries pictures where his money used to be. There we go. A father is neither an anchor to hold on to. No, a father is neither an anchor to hold us back, nor a sail to take us there, but a guiding light whose love shows the way. May you all be blessed with fatherly love, whether that father is your heavenly father, whether that father is the man that gave birth to you, whether that father is a mentor that you met through your life, whether that father is a teacher, whomever it is, whether that father was your mother, because I always was the mother and father for my son. May you all be blessed with the love of Father. Happy Father's Day.
Choir is-
Choir's coming up.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are.